So let's jump right into the heart of the debate. We only have temperature records for the last 100 years, so for the last 1,000 years we have to estimate. Conservatives believe the last 1,000 years of Earth's temperatures look like this. Liberals believe it looks like this. This liberal graph has been nicknamed the hockey stick. We call it a hockey stick because the temperatures are completely flat for 1,000 years, then spike at the end. Hockey stick, ironic sport choice for melting ice caps. Now, the hockey stick is extremely controversial because there was a hacking scandal that revealed data manipulation. But before we get into the hacking scandal, let's first learn the science behind it. I'm going to introduce our expert scientific panel. First up is the Democrats' pick. He believes global warming is a man-made imminent threat. In a white shirt, please welcome government scientist. It's a pleasure to be here. You can trust the government. Government is good. Government is your friend. Next is the Republicans' pick. This scientist believes global warming is not man-made. He works for a Russian oil company, so we can find him outside of an oil rig, which to meet emission standards runs off the blood of minority children. Please welcome unpublished Russian scientist.
Do I pen now or at the end? I have it in duffel bags ready to go.
Okay, so government scientist, you created the hockey stick using tree ring data. How does that work? Some trees have their growth limited by temperature. We look at tree rings to evaluate during what years did they grow the most. In other words, what was the temperature that allowed for that growth? His method assumes the exact same relationship between temperature and tree ring growth throughout all of time. In fact, for the last 30 years, tree ring growth and temperature have moved in opposite directions. I could mock you by saying I only follow the trees and ignore thermometers. Global warming? No! For I am but the Lorax, and I stand for the trees, and the trees say it's cooling. Not only can we get the temperatures from tree rings, but we can also get them from ice cores. And the ice cores and the tree rings match exactly, which exactly matches to the CO2 records from ice cores, which matches the temperatures that we have observed. And those match up with the coral reefs. What is this? The movie Jim Carrey's Truman Show? Where it's some kind of crazy conspiracy theory. All these scientists, they're in on it. And the weather, it's being controlled by the government through some giant station in the sun. What is wrong with you? Even if CO2 is exactly matching up to temperature, how do you know that it's causing temperature changes? CO2 is a greenhouse gas, meaning it traps heat in Earth's atmosphere. It's as though the entire Earth were covered in a heat-trapping blanket. Like a real blanket, it's made in China. But CO2 is good for plants. That's why it's in a greenhouse. The very thing you're measuring is the tree's positive response to warming. The extra plants will absorb the CO2. That's incorrect. We've had so much deforestation on Earth that the amount of CO2 that we're now putting into the atmosphere cannot be absorbed by the forests. The real problem is deforestation in Brazil. Look at these before and after photos. The splotches are cut down rainforest in Brazil. You let Brazil give the Earth a Brazilian wax. Hey, can we leave it a little more natural, please? Oh my God, my biodiversity's gone.
These liberals, they are lying.
Okay, now I know the Republican is foaming at the mouth to tell us about Climategate. So can you please elaborate, what is Climategate? Climategate is when a group of hackers broke into the UN's climate research group and leaked documents that show that the liberal scientists directly manipulated the data about global warming. What did the Climategate emails show?
They tried to hide the medieval warming period. This is a time during the Vikings when temperatures were just as high as today.
Come on, have you ever seen a picture of a Viking with their shirt on? I mean, if you're dressed for combat and your armor shows your nipples and your shaven chest, I'm thinking that shit must have been popping off like spring break Cancun, okay? Now, there's a lot of controversy and he said, she said over what the Climategate emails actually mean. One of the emails says, hide the decline. Now, some conservative talk show hosts take this to mean hide the temperatures. I read the book written by one of the scientists who wrote the email. In his book, he explains that hide the decline meant hide the divergence. Divergence is like we explained at the beginning of the video, when temperatures and tree rings move in opposite directions. Why do you believe divergence is important?
This calls into question if they ever move together, my comrade.
You assume the exact same relationship between temperature and tree growth throughout all of time. What about the sun's radiation being more or less? Sunspots. What about clouds blocking the sun more or less? What about fertilizers in the soil? Did you take into account bird feces? It's far too complicated. It's like trying to model female orgasm. It's too complex for you to plan. That's why you had to fake it. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this episode, but we got a great part 2 coming for you. In part 2, we're going to be discussing ocean acidification, melting ice caps, rising sea levels, and satellite data. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the other side. Government is good. Government is your friend.
I will pay double to be published.